Today we have Ozzie, who's an RSD instructor, somebody who I actually modeled my boot camps after. So I wanted to talk to Ozzie about how he created the RSD boot camp for himself, because each instructor has their own boot camp that makes personal transformations in our students. And he's somebody who does it in a phenomenal level, and it has inspired me to create a lot of my programs. When I was traveling around the world, I created the RSD free tour, and a lot of it was based upon what I learned on Ozzie's boot camp. He's somebody who also took some of the lessons that I taught from my free tour and applied to his boot camp. We have very, very similar styles in terms of teaching, in terms of leadership. And so I thought it would be really cool to have him here. So Ozzie, first of all, I'd like to talk to you just like, tell me a little bit about the boot camp. Tell me about how the Ozzie boot camp works, the exercises, the interaction, all the different things that you do.
Yeah, man, well, it's a really an experience where it's a transformational experience. You know, as you know, I work with fear. My bootcamp is called Fear Technology, and it's based on my experience of 10 years coaching around the world. You know, and it started really small. You know, dealing with approach anxiety. You know, the guy's paralyzed, cannot approach, so I had to deal with that. And then I think one day I saw you do something in your own program where you send guys on a mission. And then it was really successful. People came back with phone numbers, Insta dates. And I was like, you know, I need to change my program to be more field-based, you know, and more like hands-on, based on what I saw you do. And when the guys came back, it's almost that their fears were transformed. You know, there was a transformation there. They were excited. You know, they got their numbers, they got Insta dates, and we're all like, you know, very excited, and you did that without much preparation, without much seminaring, you know, very much hands-on. So what I try to do in my bootcamp is exactly the same. I try not to prepare them too much, you know what I mean, not to do too much seminar, not too much theory, and then try to work with fear and the symptoms of fear and overcoming fear, and also transforming that fear into excitement.
Well, I love the term fear technology. Can you talk about why you called it fear technology and what it is?
Well, yeah, my you know, the assumption is that 90% of the game is fear, 10% of what to do. And then what to do, you know, how to approach, how to open, and how to isolate, how to close, how to pull the girl. All of that accounts for 10% of the game. And it doesn't matter that you know all of that. If you are afraid, if you're scared, you're not going to be able to do it. And if you actually do it, it's not going to go well, because fear and performance are opposites. I realized that even my students knew exactly what to do. If they were scared, they wouldn't be able to do it. And I had a hard time coaching them also if I didn't deal with their fears. Because if you don't deal with their fears, it's hard to coach somebody. Because even if you tell, okay, you know what, this is the right body language, I need you to do it this way. And then when they go in, if they're scared, they're going to fuck it up again. So a lot of my bootcamp is about self-correction. So we work with those fears, we get rid of fear, and performance starts to improve.
One of the things that I've heard is that the same chemicals in your body that produces excitement is the same chemicals that produce fear.
Absolutely, absolutely. So it also is in the same area of your body. You know, if you feel butterflies, right, and when you because you're afraid, you feel excited. It's in the same area. Your heart starts racing when you're scared, but also your heart starts racing when you're excited. So, I mean, the connection is there, you know, between fear and excitement. So we actually can, and when I noticed that, I could transform those symptoms of fear into something productive, you know, like excitement. You know, when you're excited, you do things.
Well, you were saying earlier that fear and performance are kind of at odds with each other.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. And it's very simple. You know, you don't perform the same way when you're afraid. And in order to perform better, you have to get rid of the fear. So that was my main thing in bootcamps. Like, I want these guys to perform, but if they're afraid, they cannot do it. So I have to deal with that emotion. And we have 200 different ways of dealing with it. So I dedicated myself to how do I deal with fear? How do I target that emotion, which is a survival emotion? You know what I mean? There's no threat, but your body interprets that as a threat. So when you go in there, guess what? Tonality goes down.
I remember reading in a book by Covey, 7 Habits of Highly Effective People. Stephen Covey was talking about how you have the power within yourself to control your own emotions. What's your belief on that?
Absolutely, absolutely. I think that the problem is people don't know how to. You need to know how. Yes, because if you deal with the symptoms of fear and you don't know how to deal with them properly, you don't have breathing techniques, you don't have the power of what I call amplification, make those symptoms stronger so they can transform later. So you need to have this know-how to deal with those emotions. If you don't have it, it's almost like you cannot handle it.
Well, I guess one of the things that kind of inspired me about your program is that I've noticed that you had so many interactive exercises on program that kind of allow you to overcome fear and also increase performance, not just in terms of game, but all life skills. Because a lot of the exercises that you were doing that I thought was really interesting was that they weren't directly involved. Like maybe half of them were, but then like half of them were kind of partly involved with the game and partly involved with just life skills in general.
Yep.
But I'd love for you to talk to me about what are some of the exercises that you do on your boot camp that you think are really powerful?
As a result of fear, we work only with the top fear. And then when that top fear goes down, you're going to notice that every other fear goes down too. Every other fear across the board. And that affects also your social life, your work life, and everything else. So it has this transformational effect. When my guys finish the boot camp, they feel like, I feel free, You hear that a lot. I feel free. I feel so comfortable in social situations now. I don't feel threatened. And that's not only when they approach. It's also, I don't know, when they go to, they tell me, well, I went into to do some shopping, and I immediately started talking to the clerk there, and then I talked to the woman behind me in the line, and so it's just affects every area of your life. You feel more comfortable in social situations, and that, of course, work-wise, at the office, whatever.
Give me an example of some of the drills that you actually have boot camp students jump into.
There's a variety of drills, and the thing is, I always tailor them.
Oh, okay.
To the student. It's
More
very important.
personalized.
Yeah, because there is certain levels of fear, and sometimes they have to climb up a little bit of the ladder. Yes. So, for example, one of my favorite drills, it's it's called the escalator drill. So in London we have two escalators going up, right? So in order to stretch that comfort zone, my students have to approach a girl on the other side of the escalator. So it basically has to open, and everybody is going to hear what he's saying for at least 2 minutes. And then he gets to the end of the escalator, and what happens is, after a crazy drill like that, people say, well, yeah, it's not going to work, right? Actually, sometimes they get Insta dates out of that drill. They get phone numbers. They get invited to parties. Yeah. After a 2-minute interaction, they get invited to a party or somewhere.
Well, I think that whenever you interact with somebody in any kind of situation, anywhere, any place, anytime, you always have to make that first impression. And that first impression, I think, is like a great magical analogy for this escalator drill, because what you're trying to do is you're trying to approach somebody on an escalator. Well, that escalator may be 30 seconds, a minute, 3 minutes, because you have different lengths. In the tube, they're bigger. In a shopping mall, they're smaller. But what you're trying to do is...
I've seen you do that in your boot camps, too. I've seen videos of you doing escalator drills.
I did do that. I did that a lot in my boot camps and my free tours. And I love the analogies because you can actually see that time that you physically have with the other person. You can see the escalator is going to end soon.
It's going to end at some point.
You don't hook that person in a conversation. They're not interested in carrying forward a conversation. They're kind of stuck with you during that time, so they want to walk up faster. And these people are too tired to do that. But if you don't hook them that fast, then you can't hook them off the escalator. In a normal life situation where you're walking up to somebody on the street, in a bar or club or any other situation.
You make a good point, because we need to make the practice harder for the student so that real life situations become easier. And all I'm trying to do with these drills is to raise the difficulty level of a situation that normally would be like normal level. Like you approach a girl that is standing, or approach a group that's standing and they're not going anywhere. So it's kind of easy to do there. But an escalator that is moving, and the girl's going somewhere, and she's gonna go right after talking to you. So the difficulty level gets higher. But with the difficulty level getting higher, guess what? Your skill level goes high too.
Well, absolutely. I know that in day game, most people are going somewhere. And at nighttime when you're approaching on the street, which most of your approaches are, you have that genuine time constraint as opposed to in a bar or club that be sitting down just hanging out with no game plan of how long before they want to leave.
Yeah.
But when you're actually on your life, on your schedule, you're going to have to be more powerful than what that other person wants to do. Just that impact.
That's why I love doing those walking sets on the street, and I sometimes ask myself, in order to raise the skill levels, I'm always raising the difficulty level. So one of the ways to raise the difficulty level, for example, is to make an approach a walking set. Like you said, they were going somewhere. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And it's harder,
Definitely.
right? So guess what? When he's done 10 of those, he goes back to a club or a bar where everybody's sitting down or leaning against the bar, then all of a sudden the fear goes down and the performance goes up naturally without you having to interfere. People self-correct. That's the beauty of fear technology. You do self-correct.
Well, I think that's cool about you focusing so much on these interactions that are outside of the typical club scene.
Yeah.
You know, you do both. You do a lot of like physical game, dance floor game, club game as well, and working in bars. I've seen that. But I think what's really cool about it is that so many girls are no longer going to the bars. In fact, a lot of the girls that don't go to the bars are a lot of girls that guys want to date, but they don't. They don't know where to find them. They just see this beautiful girl. They don't know how to stop them, get them in a conversation.
In fact, it's one of the questions that I always get. How do I approach a girl? Because I see hot girls in the tube.
All the time.
And then it's not socially acceptable to approach there. See, that's their fear talking.
Yeah.
It's social fear. Like, it's not socially acceptable. So that's why the first thing I do, I take them to the tube in London. I make them approach there in those difficult sets. And girls that are walking down the street, right? You don't find those girls in the club. But they're there. See, guys ask me, yeah, but I see this girl's walking. What do I do? They're walking down the street. I'm on the opposite side of the road. You know what I mean? And I want to go approach. But if you're scared, if you're afraid, you're not going to be able to approach.
I met my wife just walking down the street.
I know you did. I know you told me a story.
It's a great way to like meet people.
Yeah.
I've met.
So you were kind of using fear technology there.
I guess I was. And there's
Absolutely.
other guys trying to pick her up as well.
But that's the beauty of this. We improve when fear goes down. It goes down everywhere in your life in general. So you can actually do that approach. Now, if you're paralyzed by fear and you don't know how to deal with the symptoms, then those approaches are impossible. Because first of all, they say, well, maybe she's not going to talk to me. That's the first thing they think. She's walking. Like when you met your wife, she's in the daytime. She might be going somewhere. So you always this rationalization like, yeah, right. You know what? I'm not going to approach her now. So they need to understand that this is fear. Fear is paralyzing you. And they need to deal with that emotion that stops you.
How have you noticed that your game, as a guy who's been in his 20s versus 30s versus 40s, how do you notice your game has changed and evolved over time?
Well, the first thing I do, I tell girls my age right away. That's one of my exposures. It's one of my drills. I tell them my age right away. What I notice telling my age right away is that nothing happens. 9 out of 10, they don't care. They talk to me like, it doesn't matter if I'm in my 40s or in my 30s, all that matters is the symptoms of fear. If you look scared, if you look creepy, or your shoulders are up, your head is down, your body language sucks, your tonality is not good. See, that's the things that people look at that raises red flags. Yeah. And for me, when I turned 40, I'm in my 40s now, but when I turned 40, I decided, you know what, I need to tell the age right away. I need them to know what age I am. And then I realized that nobody cares. That's one of the things about fear technology. You're going to realize that those things that scare you so much, nobody cares.
I guess I agree with you. My thought was that over time, your game has probably evolved quite a bit because you've been in this for so many years.
Yeah.
In terms of like how you've picked up girls, how you interacted with other people. That also has been changing in a dramatic way just through field experience, reference experiences. So I was wondering how your game has personally evolved.
Well, I'm at a point where, because I work for fear technology, I have to work with fear. So I have to find a way to scare myself. which is hard. It's a quality problem because, and what I notice now is if I'm not a little bit scared of the situation, I have to produce that fear. I have to tell myself, I have to find a way to create fear for me because I work with fear. And that's the biggest change for me. In the past, I would just approach, but now I'm trying to challenge myself, even at this point. So I enter the club and I look around, and it's very difficult for me to find a challenging set. But I try to find the most challenging set I can and create fear around it. That's the biggest change for me. Because I believe that you have to work with fear. I mean, if you don't have it, you have to produce it, at least a little bit. Because that's the energy. That's the energy of the approach. If you don't produce a little fear, then I don't get the excitement later after I've done the set.
Yeah.
I need to produce a little bit of fear to have that sense of excitement. Okay, I did something challenging. Yeah. The second thing that's changed now, it's that it's difficult for me to do sets that don't challenge me. Because I see it like a waste of time. Like my skills are not going to go up, so why do an easy set? You know what I mean? And that's a quality problem. Yes, many people would like to have this problem. So just looking for I guess for me, one of the biggest challenges is go to the dance floor and find, a makeout set that the guy looks big and the girl looks amazing, and try to, break the makeout and steal the girl. That's the challenge. See, that's something that inspires me because it's hard to do. Or finding a set that looks very difficult. They have a huddle there. It's difficult to get in. Well, if people watch my videos, I've posted lots of in-field examples of that. Getting into a difficult group. Those are the things that inspire me, because those are the things that I can actually find some kind of challenge in it.
Mm-hmm. How about your position on relationships and how that's changed throughout time? Like, what's your personal preference for
people that are in open relationships, in this game? I'm not one of those guys. I believe that after a period, you should do what you did, like kind of marry. See, I'm kind of old school that way. Once you develop your game and you find the kind of woman you want, then you should go out and find her and marry, or have some kind of stable relationship, because that's the biggest payoff. In this game, the biggest payoff is for the first time, guys have choice. For a long time, women had the choice, so they picked the guy that they want, and then the guy would follow them. But with the game, it's like all of a sudden we are empowered, so we can actually have fun, find the girl of your dreams or whatever, and then marry her, or just have a relationship. As my opinion. Some guys have open relationships, other guys have multiple relationships. I'm kind of old school. I believe in a period of really getting your skills up, maybe a couple of years, or for a normal guy, a couple of years, maybe a year, where you get your skills all the way up and then find a girlfriend. Because what? Even if you break up with that person, you can always go back. It's kind of like riding a bicycle. You can always go back and work on your skills and get them up again and get a new girlfriend, right? Mm-hmm. So it makes sense. I don't know. But I'm different in that way. Some guys are different.
That makes sense. But going back to something that I noticed when I was in London with you, because I was attending a lot of your boot camps.
Yeah.
And I noticed that when we got to the bars and clubs, so many times you just run into old boot camp students of yours.
All the time.
They just keep coming back and taking more programs again and again, and they might do it 6 times.
Yeah, I had guys that come back once a year.
Yeah.
To just tune up, I guess.
Yeah.
And depends on their economic level, if they have a lot of money or less money. But we get a lot of repeat business in London. Like, people take my boot camp every 2 years, or sometimes twice a year if they want to. But it's funny because these days, every time I'm out, I'm always finding somebody that I taught at boot camp. They're all over the place. Because I've been doing it for 10 years. So even here in Vegas, sometimes I come here and I find students of mine everywhere.
Well, I guess one of the things I was interested in is that because you have such a long-term relationship with some of these guys, that process of mentoring, how does that process change and evolve?
I have this interesting stories, right? Like this guy who takes 4 bootcamps with me, and when I asked him, he said, "Well, it's my wife sending me." See, he said, and this is something that has really stuck with me over the years. Like, well, she told me, "You're a better husband when you take a boot camp."
You'd be That's like, interesting because he's meeting so many other girls, and I guess those interactions.
Yeah, but
how does
the wife would encourage him to go to a boot camp and learn the lessons of the program and get rid of fear. And because apparently he was more relaxed.
More opened up.
More relaxed, more open up around the house, around the family. He was a better husband, better businessman. He had a huge business. This guy was plastic surgeon, had 60 people working for him. Amazing business.
But you know that your ability to communicate effectively and smoothly and just talk without that fear of saying things that might offend other people or saying things that might not be appropriate. The ability to just also build that calibration from saying those things that may be time better. Those kind of skills, I think, help you in your business life, your personal life, and your daily
life. Absolutely. I believe that miscalibration comes from fear.
Yeah.
So you're so scared that you say the wrong thing at the wrong time, or you touch somebody at the wrong time inappropriately because you're scared. For example, one of the things that I do in my boot camps is the guy have to bring his comfort level up before we start using physical game. Because I noticed that when they grab people or girls can feel the tension in their bodies. So we try to bring those fears down, get the comfort up, and then physical game works.
Makes sense.
Very smoothly. And I think what you mentioned, miscalibration, saying the wrong thing at the wrong time, this comes from symptoms of fear that the person is trying to deal with.
Well, as a boot camp instructor, so many of the people I interact with, most common thing I would hear is, what do I say next?
Yeah.
It's something that I think comes with that stifledness. Now,
yeah,
I love that.
Absolutely.
The things that you've done, you also unstifle their ability to communicate, because once they're just free-flowing, it just keeps coming out. It's not like they're wondering what to say next, it just comes out.
Yeah, I think one of the effects of fear in your body is that the blood leaves the brain. It's like that, because it's almost like your body, because it's in fight or flight, is kind of reorganizing itself. So it shoots all the blood into the body and the legs. So either you fight or you fly, and then of course you go blank because there's no energy out there.
Yeah.
There's no way the brain can function. That's why people freeze. You see that all the time. Somebody really not in social situations, but somebody points a gun at you, you kind of freeze, right? Well, it's the same in social situations. You freeze, and the blood leaves the brain. You go blank, and then that's what happens. You don't remember what you're going to say next.
In terms of what we're talking about here, I think so much has to deal with what your thoughts, your values are, what you will not tolerate, your mindset, how positive it is, what your outlook is. And I think a lot of what you're talking about influences that. Now, some of it will be about the approaches of using outer game tactics to get people's autopilot responses to more kind of just be relaxed, push things out there. The other things are there's things that are kind of like internal belief systems to kind of rewire people's thinking.
Yes, pretty much. I hear, for example, once in a while, I get students that at the end of the boot camp, they feel they're on some kind of like spiritual experience where they're like, my God, I feel so light. And I know that's part of the rewiring, because the brain loses the ability to feel fear. The body loses the ability to feel fear because it's being processed. So they're kind of like, they feel lighter. And the experience they have is like, oh my God, I feel absolutely grounded. Like nothing really scares me. I'm not saying everybody has that kind of effect, but I have students that mention that, and that's, I think, is the brain rewiring itself. All the adrenaline is gone. There are no threats in the environment anymore, so they feel really calm. And of course, when you approach people like that, they can feel that too. That's what I think about my program. You learn that the symptoms of fear, if you don't deal with them, you kind of like project them onto people.
The other thing I wanted to talk about, since so much of this is internal, in terms of projections, is what about when you're feeling sad or angry? That projection of state, most people will go out on the internet and they'll say, hey, I wasn't in state, so I couldn't do that approach.
Yeah, I get that a lot. And the beauty of fear technology is that we do not depend on if you're happy or you're sad or whatever. We work with fear. And I bring you back to the example I talked about earlier where I told you I need to work with fear. So if I don't have it, I'll produce it. Because that's the way I transform that into excitement. If I don't produce a little bit of fear, I cannot transform it later.
So you want to create this emotion that's more strong, overpowering than anything that's getting in your way.
Absolutely.
And use that
to
get more success.
Part of, people that feel sad or they feel sometimes because they're scared, they feel powerless. See, they feel powerless that they cannot deal with those symptoms, and then of course they become sad. But I do not rely on mental states in my programs. We work with one emotion, which is fear, and I make it a point to produce it, and then we work with it, and then we work on transforming that emotion. That's why we don't depend on being in a good. Actually, when my students are in panic, I love it. I say, yeah, program is working. They're panicking. So I say, oh, you mean I have to do that approach? And I go, yep. And they're like, you see in panic. And then, of course, they don't understand yet that emotion they're feeling is empowering. It doesn't have to be disempowering.
Awesome. Well, thanks, Ozzie. That was great. That was deep.
That was very deep. Anyway, man, I learned a lot from you too. So
cheers.